Let's talk about the books that I finished during the month of May. I technically finished, I think, 5 books, which is really low for me, but I found a new 5-star, at least one, and I finished a gigantic series. So like, it doesn't really matter as long as I enjoy myself, right? And the month was rough, so I'll take it. So the first book I finished, well, not really, but the first book we're going to talk about, An Echo of Things to Come, which is the second book in this, is it the Lycanus, whatever, series, trilogy. I loved it. From the same author that wrote The Will of the Many, which after reading that, I went back to read more about him because I enjoyed it. And I thought, why not read a series that is completely finished? Because book 2 of this one is only coming out later this year. I actually requested the advanced reader copy and it was declined. My feelings are definitely not hurt. So I went back and read it. So I finally finished book 2 that I was in the middle of for 3 months. No comments. Not the book's fault. And then I didn't think I was going to make it in my TBR for the month of June. I thought I was going to finish this in June, but no, here I am. It's much easier to read the last 300 pages of a book than the middle ones. But I finished The Light of All That Falls, which is 800 pages. Adult fantasy series. It has some classic tropes of like chosen one fighting against the evil, but long story short, the giant premise is that thousands of years ago, these people that were really powerful and don't die started following this entity that claims to be God, and it was making them do like a bunch of horrible stuff, honestly. But if they did it and remove the barrier that protects everyone from evil, then they would be able to go back in time and everything would be fine. In the present time, you follow these 3 friends that are in this magical school and their big exam that determines, you know, the rest of their life are approaching. And one of them has magic, but he can't seem to be using it. And if he doesn't pass the exam, then he will be scarred. He will become like a shadow. So they remove his access to his power and he has this big scar on his face. So he's terrified of that. But then last second, someone is like, hey, we need you to go, you know, save the world. When I reviewed book 1, I was mentioning some things that I didn't really have an issue in book 2, but definitely came back in book 3 for me. And it was the fact that the author will bring powers or things that are too powerful or too strong, and he has to kind of come back and correct it. And book 1, I still gave it 5-star because who cares? I still enjoyed myself, but it came back. So in book 1, I was saying specifically, because I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, that the main character can tell when people are lying. And it's like too powerful, right? So like he kind of has to come back. So there are a few things like that happens, but again, spoiler free. And it comes back in book 3. There's definitely one thing that is explained in the afterword, like he's going to, or he's planning to write a companion series, because there's definitely something that was lacking in here. So we'll let that go because again, he's planning a companion series. And there are a few things that I did see coming, which I can spoil in the comment section. Specifically, one of them, this post-it, what is it, like 200-300 pages before the end? Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's what's gonna happen. And I was right. There are 2 things actually I saw coming, but again, none of that took away from my enjoyment. It's just fun because if anyone else has read it, we can talk about it. But this was good. I think the strength of this series is the magic system, which I can't even explain. It's too complicated, but it's the characters. I like them in book 1, but by book 3, I was so emotionally invested, specifically that character. If you know, you know. And yeah, so it's one of those situations that I'm like, I see the weaknesses, but who cares? Like, I enjoyed myself. It didn't take anything away. I wanted to see desperately what was going to happen. That's why I had 300 pages left and I just binged the shit out of the book because I needed to know. And I'm happy with the way it ended, which nothing worse than finishing, you know, a gigantic book series and you're disappointed. So this was painful. I loved it. Would recommend it. Again, if you have read The Will of the Many or you don't like to start series that are not finished, this trilogy is done. So rating wise, book 2 is definitely a 4. I was warned that it was the weakest one and I can see it. And I don't think that's why I was in the middle of it for 3 months. It was definitely me in reading slump. But book 3, I'm not sure what to do with it because honestly, because of some of the stuff, I kind of don't want to give it a 5-star, but it's definitely better than book 2 and it's over a 4. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of time. I just finished it, okay? I was very late trying to finish it and it was worth it, but between a 4 and 5. Okay, it's worth it. That's all that matters. Let's talk about the best book I read in May very easily. There Are Rivers in the Sky by Alicia Falk. This is the 3rd book I've finished by her, and it is now my favorite book by her. I will say, I keep saying that she's not really like my usual genre, but I read more and more, so maybe it's becoming my genre, but she writes adult literary fiction with a hint of magical realism. For example, in one of her books, some of the chapters are told from the point of view of a fig tree, and in this one, it's less present, but there's a raindrop in the first chapter and it kind of comes back through the story. This one is definitely a slow burn, so give yourself like half the book to really get into it if you're not sure, because there are 3 point of views and I wasn't sure how they were connecting at first. It was kind of like every time we would switch, I would put the book down because like, okay, I have to like go back, prepare myself mentally. I wasn't feeling well, so I feel like it was a bit overwhelming, but it was so worth it. So one of them is in the 1800s. You're following a little boy. At first he's born, and then you're seeing his life when he's very poor. He's trying to survive, maybe get educated, maybe get a job, and he wants to travel. He gets really obsessed with this specific topic. There's one of them that you're following in 2018, a woman that lives in the UK, and she is feeling lost. She is about to get divorced from her husband. She has lost her parents when she was young, and actually she's a scientist that studies water. And there's also another point of view in 2014, a little girl that is being raised by her grandma very traditionally. And what's the name of that river actually that she lives next to? Tigris, River Tigris in Turkey. So you follow these 3 stories, and again, you kind of don't really know how they link. And towards the end, that's when I realized that this actually was heavily inspired by real life events, which she discusses in the afterword, which was interesting. It became really difficult to read emotionally because it was painful, but she always does that, okay? Every time. You have to be mentally prepared to read her books. And it was so worth it. Again, it was a bit slow for me in the beginning, partially because of how I felt, but 5 star. So good. You know when you finish a book and you have to hug it and just stare at the wall in silence? That's her books for me, and this is her best one. My favorite, her best one. So yeah, honestly, there's nothing else to say. It was absolutely beautiful, absolutely heartbreaking, and I can't recommend it enough if that's something that is appealing to you. Because one last thing I need to mention, once in a while, this beautiful thing happens to me, and the fiction book I'm reading is somehow related to the nonfiction book I'm reading, and it's always fun. The topic that the little boy gets obsessed with is the Epic of Gilgamesh. I think it's considered one of the, or if the first story, like written story or something, and it's linked also to when the goddess was replaced by patriarchal religions. And the nonfiction book I'm reading is When God Was a Woman, the landmark exploration of the ancient... I can't say it. I've tried to say that word like 50 times. It's the same word in French, so of course I can't say it in English. The landmark exploration of the ancient worship of the great goddess and the eventual suppression of women's rights. There you are. So this book is also mentioning, obviously, the goddess and also Gilgamesh, which I thought was like, how? It's always fun to me. Anyway, this one I'm technically not finished, so it's the one I'm currently reading. I have like I think 40, 50 pages left, but I did want to give it a shout out because again, somehow. I will say this book is definitely heavier on history than I personally care about, but I still think that this is a fascinating topic. It makes you realize that history is definitely written by the winners, right? You go in school and they tell you something and like you just assume that that must be right. And then you look back and you're like, is it though? Because you go to a museum and you'll see all these sculptures and it will be like, oh, a fertility cult. And then you realize, no, women used to worship the goddess before patriarchal religion. And I do feel like the authors sometimes they're a little sassy in the best way possible. Like, for example, anthropologists were often like European, white men, whatever, and they would translate things like high priestess or holy woman to prostitute or temple prostitute, which like, again, I never really questioned that, but as an adult now, I'm like, yeah, that is weird. Or, again, this is the part I was at, which made me giggle. Long story short, she's talking about the moment where these two things were happening at the same time. So you have these patriarchal religion, and then people are still worshiping the goddess. And she's saying how it's a tough sell. Like, you have to be incredibly violent to suppress the other one, because otherwise, which women will want to be considered property? Which one would want to relinquish having, you know, a say politically, or owning anything, or having money, and deciding to be a virgin faithful to your one husband, who can do, you know, whatever. Tough choice. Like, what should I do, you know? The way she worded it made me laugh. But yes, that's the one I'm currently reading. I think it is a very interesting topic, and I thought it was funny that I was reading both at the same time. Ooh, before I forget, I did finish an ARC advanced reader copy of School of Shards, which is the last book in the Vita Nostra series, which you might have heard the first book. I don't feel like I've heard a lot of people continuing the series. It is one of the weirdest thing I've ever read. Dark Academia, Magical School, which, you know, summer, fall, I feel like that screams that season for me, but so worth reading. So long story short, book 1, you follow this girl who this man shows up, puts her in a time loop and forces her to do those really, really awful things in order to be accepted into this magical school. She doesn't want to go, but she doesn't have a choice. And to force her and other people to, you know, go to school and then perform well in school, they threaten them. Oh, you didn't pass the test? Your dog is dead. Ooh, you're not performing well right now. Grandma, bye-bye. So it's a lot, but at the same time, it's not like gross or anything. It's just like a lot of pressure to study. And yeah, I could not explain to you the magic system in this one. This is, it's vague. I'm usually someone that likes hard magical system that have like strict rules. There are no, well, grammar rules, I guess. That's all I'm going to say. This was worth it. Book 3 is further in time. Again, I'm going to keep this spoiler free, but I can spoil anything in the comment section as always. So I did feel like we were following other characters also. So it was a little bit less interesting to me than the first book. I do think the first book is the strongest, but I'm going to give it between 3 and 4. Like, it was a solid read. If you enjoyed book 1 and 2, it's definitely worth picking up. But I do think that book 1 is the strongest, and yeah. I'm sad to be done. I think there was a companion novel. I don't know if it's going to be translated to English or not, but yeah, this was weird. The last one that I did finish is Marthur. I picked this up because, again, it is literary fiction. Who am I? I picked it up because last year, at the end of last year, I think the last reading vlog I did, I was reading books from a list of like best books of 2024. And out of the 4 books, I gave 2 5-star, 2 4-star. It was such a successful vlog that I decided, why not read more books from that list? Because usually I feel like the list, this was also worth it. Also inspired a little bit by lifetime events from the author, because the main character is very depressed, he's suicidal, he has experienced addiction, and he lost his mother when he was young. And that's the thing, that the author also, almost in a freak accident, like what were the chances of that happening to that person? But a plane is shut down from the US Army. And obviously affects the rest of his life. And this one follows a few characters while mainly following the main character. And it's a bit slice of life, and you're seeing trauma, just finding yourself being lost, wanting answers in life. And yeah, it was very painful, very depressing, but I liked it. And I'm also going to give this one a 4-star. The author writes beautifully, and I want to say that this is his first book. I might be wrong, but I would read more by him. Yes, if you want to read a book about someone, you know, having an existential crisis. Also difficult to read, obviously, but clearly I was in a mood this I started with like heartbreaking books and then went back to reading these giant fantasy, which I don't know what I'm going to read next. I'm thinking either The Devil and Mrs. Davenport, or maybe I'll go back to another big chunky fantasy, because if I'm in the mood, we're just gonna go for it. As far as audiobook, I finished a total of 0. Okay, I started like 10, like literally. I kept returning them to the library. I don't know why. Usually they are what saves me during a reading slump, but I think it was just a mood funk. We're supposed to be in spring here. Where is the sun? Like, I feel like my setup is still very wintry and dark because no sun. So maybe that's going to help everyone, including the audiobooks, because I haven't finished one. I haven't listened to 1 second since my TBR. So not going well. But I'm very excited about the books I am planning on reading next month. I'll put my TBR for June right there. And I'm planning on doing so many fun videos. I have a book haul coming up, but I also have my yearly book on haul. So you definitely don't want to miss that out. And I would love to hear in the comment section the best books you've read this month. See you next. Bye.